Lord, our God and Heavenly Father, at this new dawn unfolding before us, we humbly present ourselves in your holy presence, seeking your invaluable peace and abundant grace to begin this day. The world outside pulses with its demands, its challenges, and its uncertainties, and often, amidst this whirlwind, our soul feels exhausted even before taking the first step. It is in this moment, Lord, that your word calls to us, inviting us to seek in you a secure refuge, a firm anchor that will sustain us through the storms. Routine, with its predictability and obligations, can lead us into a state of distraction, where we forget the miracle of each new day, the opportunity to live under your loving gaze. We sometimes feel the weight of accumulated worries, the anxiety generated by expectations, the fatigue that comes from the daily struggle. It is in this scenario, Father, that the promise of peace and grace becomes a balm for our thirsty hearts. This is not a superficial peace, which merely silences the external noise, but a deep peace that emanates from the knowledge of your sovereignty, from the certainty of your unconditional love. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, the one that can dwell within us even when external circumstances are turbulent. And grace, Lord, your grace, that undeserved gift that reaches us, empowers us, forgives us, and transforms us. Without it, we would be mere fragile human beings, incapable of facing the challenges that life presents us. But with you, we know we are more than conquerors, that we possess within us the strength that comes from on high, to overcome any obstacle. It is to this inexhaustible source of peace and grace that we turn our hearts at this moment, crying out, that each instant of this day be lived in communion with you, under your direction and protection. Our daily journey often begins without due reverence, without the sacred recognition of the gift of life and the opportunity to serve. We plunge into our tasks, social media, the news that bombards us, and our first contact with the day occurs in superficiality, in haste, in stress. This moment, however, we wish to be different. We want to intentionally pause, quiet our minds and spirits, and turn to you, the Creator of all things, He who sustains the universe with your mighty hand. It is a conscious choice, Lord, to not allow the secular to dominate the sacred, to not let the ephemeral overshadow the eternal. Haste and distraction are enemies of intimacy with the Lord, and it is precisely this intimacy that we seek to cultivate, a living and pulsating relationship that guides us in every decision, in every word, in every action. The Christian life is not a solitary journey, nor an arduous discipline devoid of aid. It is a walk in partnership with you, O God, where your strength is perfected in our weakness, where your wisdom delivers us from our own errors. We need, in particular, your peace to deal with the frustrations, the misunderstandings, the harsh words we may encounter along the way. And your grace, Lord, is what allows us to respond with love, with patience, and with forgiveness, reflecting your own character in our interactions. It is as if, by beginning the day in your presence, we are donning spiritual armor, equipped with the gifts that allow us to face the day not with self-sufficiency, but with confident dependence on you. The problem we often face is the tendency to focus on our own capabilities, on our own efforts, forgetting that true victory is not achieved with human strength, but with the power that emanates from you. Our unique angle for this day, Lord, is precisely this: to actively seek your presence as the primary source of our strength and well-being. We do not want merely to survive the day, but to thrive in it, living according to the purpose you have for us, a purpose that is always framed by your perfect peace and your infinite grace. May this moment of prayer be the gateway to a truly blessed day, where your will is done in and through our lives, to your glory. As we contemplate the peace and grace we seek for this new day, it is fundamental to understand that this pursuit is not a mere passive desire, but an active engagement with the realities that life presents us. Imagine, for example, the craftsman who, before shaping the clay, carefully prepares his workbench, selects his tools, and visualizes the project. Similarly, our morning, when inaugurated with prayer, becomes a space of preparation for the conflicts and the opportunities of the day. This preparation is what allows us to be not mere spectators of life, but conscious and divinely empowered participants. The true peace that comes from God operates as an internal shield against the arrows of anxiety and despair, while grace manifests as the vital energy that propels us to act with righteousness and kindness, even when the temptation to react impulsively presents itself. Furthermore, life confronts us with situations that test our resilience and our faith. Consider the farmer who, after planting, does not sit idly by waiting for the rain to fall from the sky. He tends the soil, removes weeds, and protects the seed. Similarly, the peace and grace we receive in the morning do not absolve us of the responsibility to cultivate our character and apply divine principles in our actions. If we face a colleague who criticizes us unfairly, grace empowers us not to retaliate with bitterness, but to seek to understand the other's perspective, or, if necessary, to defend our position with firmness, but always with respect. This discernment, this wisdom to navigate turbulent waters, is a direct fruit of continuous communion with the Holy Spirit, a dialogue that is strengthened by morning prayer. Moreover, it is crucial to recognize that divine peace does not eliminate challenges, but equips us to face them differently. Consider the strengths of a sturdy ship amidst a storm. The vessel has no control over the raging waves, but its solid structure and experienced crew ensure it can withstand and move forward. Our faith, strengthened by prayer, acts analogously, providing the necessary inner stability so that the adversities of the day do not overwhelm us. Grace, in this context, manifests as God-given ability to find purpose even in the most difficult circumstances, to learn from stumbles, and to emerge transformed, not defeated. Consequently, the way we end our day has a direct impact on how we begin it. If we surrender the night to God in gratitude and repentance, allowing Him to renew our spirit, it stands to reason that the morning will find us more receptive to His strength. The peace we seek is not a static state, but a continuous flow, fueled by our willingness to submit to the divine will in each moment. Grace, in turn, is God's power in action within us, enabling us to live a life that radiates His love and truth. Even in the face of the world's misunderstanding or sarcasm, it is a daily invitation to experience a spiritual reality that transcends the limitations of our natural selves. As we seek peace and grace to begin the day, it is crucial to broaden our understanding of how these divine gifts manifest in our interactions with the world. Consider, for instance, how we handle unforeseen circumstances beyond our control, unexpected rain altering travel plans, sudden news of family difficulties, or even public transport delays. In such moments, the peace we receive in prayer is not the absence of the events themselves, but the inner serenity that prevents us from succumbing to panic or excessive frustration. This serenity allows us to assess the situation clearly, seeking practical solutions without despair taking hold. Furthermore, the grace granted to us acts as a catalyst for a constructive response. Rather than lamenting or blaming others, we are impelled to seek support, adapt our plans creatively, or offer comfort to those who are also affected. Moreover, another crucial aspect is how peace and grace influence our self-perception throughout the day. Without this solid spiritual foundation, we tend to measure our worth by our achievements or the approval of others. A failure in an important task can lead us into a cycle of destructive self-criticism, undermining our confidence and demotivating us for subsequent challenges. However, when we cultivate the peace that comes from God, we recognize that our identity and value are not tied to performance, but to our relationship with Him. Grace, in turn, acts as a constant reminder of His unconditional love, which accepts and forgives us even in our imperfections. This liberates us from the overwhelming pressure to be perfect, allowing us to learn from mistakes without defining ourselves by them. From this perspective, let us consider the practical application in situations of interpersonal conflict. When we encounter someone behaving aggressively or disrespectfully, the natural inclination may be to retaliate in kind, escalating discord. However, the peace we seek in prayer equips us for emotional detachment, which it allows us to observe the situation before reacting impulsively. Grace, then, intervenes by empowering us to respond with compassion, seeking to understand the reasons behind another's behavior, even if that behavior negatively affects us. This approach, though challenging, is what enables the building of healthy relationships and the de-escalation of destructive cycles of animosity. Continuing, it is important to note how peace and grace intertwine in how we approach our daily responsibilities. Routine can become monotonous and oppressive if viewed merely as a series of obligations to be fulfilled. The peace that God pours into us helps us find satisfaction and purpose in our tasks, even the simplest ones, recognizing that each activity can be an opportunity to serve and glorify God. Grace, in this context, acts as an additional impetus, providing the necessary energy and motivation to carry out our work with excellence, not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to please the Lord. Thus, even a day filled with seemingly trivial tasks can become a spiritually enriching experience. Finally, as we consider the breadth of these gifts, we must reflect on how they empower us to exert a positive influence on our surroundings. A person who overflows with peace, even amidst turbulence, tends to be a point of calm and stability. For others, similarly, someone who consistently acts with God's grace, demonstrating forgiveness and kindness, can be a beacon of hope in a world often marked by harshness and selfishness. Our morning prayer, therefore, is not merely a moment of personal spiritual nourishment, but also a preparation to be instruments of peace and love, radiating Christ's light in all our actions and words throughout the day, positively impacting those with whom we come into contact. We seek peace and grace for the day, but how does this manifest when our own bodies rebel against us? Consider the internal battle against persistent fatigue or a nagging ache that obscures our focus. In such moments, the peace God offers is not the eradication of physical discomfort, but the inner strength not to allow that condition to dictate our attitude. Grace, in this scenario, grants us the resilience to carry out necessary tasks to the best of our ability, gently accepting our limitations without succumbing to despair. It's the capacity, even when the body is frail, to still find the energy for a kind word to a family member or to complete a report, reminding us that our true strength lies not in physical health, but in communion with the Lord. A distinct aspect to consider is how our pursuit of peace and grace affects our approach to loneliness. In a world where virtual connection often supplants the depth of human contact, it's possible to feel isolated even when surrounded by people. When the silence of our personal space becomes heavy, and the absence of an attentive ear proves painful, divine peace steps in. It floods our being with the certainty that, regardless of relational circumstances, we are never truly alone. For the Creator of all things indwells within us. In this state of intimate communion, grace manifests as a renewed wellspring of inner contentment, allowing us to relish our own company, unburdened by the pressing need for external validation, while still remaining open and receptive to new, genuine connections as they arise. Furthermore, it is important to explore the application of this pursuit in situations demanding complex, ethical decisions. Imagine the quandary of a professional pressured to act dishonestly to safeguard a project or a colleague. The peace we seek in the morning, cultivated through prayer, bestows upon us the mental clarity to discern the correct path. Detached from external pressure, it anchors us in divine principles that transcend worldly interests. Concurrently, grace reveals itself as the courage to uphold what is right, even in the face of potential retaliation or ostracism. It is the divine permission to act with integrity, knowing that, even if earthly consequences prove adverse, our conscience will remain at peace and our heart aligned with God's will. Moreover, let us examine how peace and grace operate in our reception of constructive feedback, particularly when it is delivered harshly or inappropriately. Often, we are inclined to internalize criticism as a personal attack, erecting defensive barriers that prevent us from extracting any value from the situation. However, by commencing the day with our minds turned towards divine peace, we cultivate a greater capacity to dissociate the message from the manner in which it was delivered. This peace enables us to listen attentively, to ponder the validity of the points raised, without negative emotion to dominate us. Grace, in the interim, grants us the humility to acknowledge our shortcomings and the fortitude to implement necessary changes, transforming a potentially painful moment into an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth. Now, let us consider how this pursuit of peace and grace deepens when we are confronted with the reality of loss, whether it be the loss of a loved one, a project into which we've poured time and energy, or even the loss of a cherished hope. The impact on our soul can be devastating. The peace we aspire to, in this context, is not the denial of the pain inherent in grief, but the capacity to traverse it with a sense of purpose and hope in eternity. It is the awareness that what was loved does not completely vanish, but is transformed into memory, into teaching, and into bonds that transcend earthly experience. Grace, in turn, invigorates us with the strength to rebuild, to find new paths, and to honor the legacy of what has passed, rather than succumbing to longing. It even allows us to witness God's presence amidst desolation, finding solace in His eternal love. Having said that, it is equally important to examine how peace and grace influence our perspective when interacting with the fragility of others. We see so many people around us struggling with their own burdens, expressing their anxieties in ways that may seem strange or even irritating to us. The peace we seek in the morning grants us the sobriety not to judge hastily, making room for empathy. It empowers us to look beyond superficial behavior and recognize the unexpressed pain or invisible struggle that may be motivating another person's actions. Grace, then, manifests in our willingness to offer a listening ear, a word of encouragement, or a gesture of kindness, even when we do not feel duly rewarded or understood. It is the practice of love in its purest form, devoid of conditions or expectations. Furthermore, an additional layer to explore is how peace and grace transform our response to the uncertainty of the future. Tomorrow is a vast and often unknown landscape, replete with possibilities but also potential adversities. Anxiety about what is to come can paralyze action and rob the present of its joy. As we commence the day with a mind anchored in divine peace, we accept that we have no absolute control over future events, but rather that we have a sovereign God who already knows and has planned each day. This trust liberates us from the need to foresee or control everything, allowing us to live with lightness and optimism. Grace, in this sense, assures us that, whatever winds may blow, we will have the necessary strength and wisdom to navigate the waters, for the Lord walks with us. Another element to consider is the impact of peace and grace on our ability to forgive ourselves. We all make mistakes, make decisions we regret, and sometimes carry a burden of guilt that can be suffocating. The peace that emanates from God helps us recognize our humanity and accept that failure is part of the learning process. It frees us from incessant self-recrimination and paves the way for reconciliation with ourselves. Grace, in this aspect, acts as a seal of divine forgiveness, confirming that, through Christ, our sins have been washed away. This dual action of peace and grace allows us to rise after a fall with a renewed heart, ready to continue the journey, learning from the past, but without being prisoners of it. In summary, the daily pursuit of peace and grace is a constant invitation to surrender and trust. It is an intentional movement to hand over the reins of our day to the Lord, allowing His presence to guide, console, and empower us. Each day presents itself as a new opportunity to experience the transformative power of these heavenly gifts, shaping not only our thoughts and emotions, but also our actions and the way we impact the world around us. Although our focus is on peace and grace to start the day, it is fundamental to expand this understanding to the context of our vocation and purpose. The Creator has endowed us with talents and gifts, and the way we apply them throughout the day is a direct reflection of our communion with Him. Consider the profession you pursue, or the responsibilities you undertake in your community or family. Life, divine peace, does not exempt us from the responsibility of carrying out these tasks with diligence and excellence, but rather equips us to face them with a renewed perspective. Instead of viewing work merely as a means of subsistence, grace allows us to see it as a field of service, an opportunity to manifest divine creativity and wisdom. It is the artisan who, when carving wood, aims not only for the final piece but finds satisfaction in the meticulous process, in the transformation of raw material into something beautiful and functional. Knowing that their hands are instruments of a greater plan, consider, furthermore, how peace and grace manifest in our journey of continuous learning. Life is a constant process of acquiring knowledge and developing skills. Instead of viewing study or the pursuit of new competencies as a burden, the peace we receive in prayer allows us to embrace this process with curiosity and openness. It dissipates the fear of misunderstanding or the inherent difficulty of learning. Grace, in turn, grants us the persistence needed to overcome intellectual obstacles, the humility to acknowledge what we do not yet know, and the discipline to dedicate the necessary time and effort to refine our capabilities. It is the musician who, after tirelessly rehearsing a complex passage, feels the satisfaction not only of mastering it but of having improved in their art, with the awareness that each note played is a reflection of the dedication and talent bestowed upon them. Moreover, it is crucial to analyze the significant impact that peace and grace have on our capacity to exert positive influence within our social circles. Frequently, our interactions are shaped by expectations, desires for validation, or even by a subtle sense of competition. Divine peace acts as an antidote to this mindset, fostering an environment of inner security that allows us to be authentic and vulnerable in our relationships. This peace liberates us from the need to impress or compare ourselves with others, creating space for genuine connection. Consequently, grace impels us to extend this same freedom and acceptance to those around us, encouraging them on their own paths, celebrating their achievements, and offering support in their struggles. Without judgment or reservation, it is like the lighthouse that, in its steadfastness and constancy, seeks no attention but illuminates the path for navigators, guiding them safely through uncertain waters. Additionally, let us consider how peace and grace influence our stewardship of the resources entrusted to us. This encompasses not only material possessions but also time, energy, and even the opportunities that present themselves. They present. When our motivation is purely selfish, we tend to hoard or squander, driven by greed or inertia. However, inner peace helps us discern the wisest and most beneficial use of these resources, aligned with higher purposes. Grace, in turn, grants us the generosity and detachment necessary to share what we have, to invest in causes that make a difference, and to use our time productively, knowing that all we possess is a gift to be managed with responsibility. And love it is the gardener who, in caring for their plants, not only provides water and light, but also fertilizes the soil, removes weeds, and protects against pests, ensuring healthy growth and abundant fruiting. Another fundamental point to highlight is how peace and grace affect our ability to deal with criticism and disapproval. Throughout the day, it is inevitable that our actions or words will be interpreted in various ways, and not always favorably. Divine peace equips us with armor against the arrows of resentment and bitterness. It allows us to hear feedback, even if inconvenient, with a more receptive spirit, seeking to discern the truth within the criticism without being brought down by negativity. Grace, in turn, grants us the strength to respond with serenity and maturity, offering explanations when necessary, or simply accepting differences of opinion without it shaking our sense of self-worth. It is the tightrope walker who, in traversing the high wire, maintains focus on the target, adjusting their center of gravity with each step, confident in their ability and the support that keeps them safe. As we interweave the various reflections that have shaped our journey thus far, we realize that the pursuit of peace and grace at the dawn of each day is not a mere morning ritual, but an intricate process of spiritual alignment and inner preparation. The way each challenge is perceived, how each interaction is conducted, and how each resource is managed, all converge at a central point. The universe of experiences awaiting us as we emerge from the quietude of prayer reveals itself no longer as a series of isolated events, but as a continuous tapestry, where inner serenity and strength from on high shape the texture and color of each thread. The wisdom acquired lies not in the mere accumulation of information, but in the ability to weave these truths into a coherent pattern that sustains our journey. In this interconnection of ideas, we visualize an inner landscape that gradually transforms, like once barren ground that, under the constant action of a spring of living water, begins to flourish. The nuances of our response to adversity, the depth of our compassion, and the clarity in our ethical decisions do not arise in a vacuum, but are the direct result of intentional cultivation. It is as if each moment of surrender and trust at dawn waters the seeds of virtue which, throughout the day, germinate into concrete actions and a living testimony. The transition to the final phase of our reflection invites us to contemplate the consolidated outcome of this spiritual alchemy. As we navigate towards the conclusion, we find a point of convergence where diverse currents of thought unite, forming a powerful river that flows towards a vast ocean of clarity. What might once have seemed like a collection of isolated precepts now reveals itself as the facets of a single, profound truth that permeates all existence. The way our perception refines, how our resilience is strengthened, and how our capacity to love expands, all point to a deeper, more lasting transformation. It is the moment when understanding solidifies, preparing the ground for a closure that resonates with the totality of what has been explored, propelling us towards the essence of what truly matters.